The air in the parking lot was thick with the scent of hot asphalt and exhaust fumes, the kind that clung to your skin like a second layer of regret. Lydia clutched the Tupperware container with the chocolate cake, her fingers whitening around the edges. The cake was still warm, the frosting slightly melted from the drive over. She had baked it at dawn, humming old hymns under her breath, the way she used to when Javier was small and the world still made sense. She spotted his silver sedan tucked in the far corner, away from the main cluster of cars. A mischievous grin tugged at her lips, the same one she'd worn when she'd hidden behind the couch on his 10th birthday, jumping out with a lopsided homemade piñata. She glanced around. The lot was nearly empty, just a few stragglers heading to their vehicles. Javier's office building loomed behind her, all glass and steel, a monument to the success she'd bled for. The car was unlocked. Of course it was. Javier had never been careful with details. That was her job. She slipped into the back seat, folding her 62-year-old body into the narrow space behind the driver's seat. Her knees protested, but she ignored them. The cake balanced precariously on her lap. She pulled the door shut with a soft click, then crouched low, her heart fluttering like a trapped bird. Minutes stretched into eternity. She counted the cracks in the upholstery, traced the faint outline of a juice stain from years ago, Javier at 12 spilling grape soda on a road trip to the Grand Canyon. She'd scrubbed it out with club soda and a prayer. The memory brought a pang of nostalgia so sharp it nearly stole her breath. Footsteps. 2 sets. The driver's door opened and Javier slid in, the familiar creak of the seat a sound from 1,000 carpool mornings. But then the passenger door opened too. A woman's perfume, something expensive and floral, flooded the small space. Lydia froze. Raquel. At first, Lydia's heart lifted. How sweet, she thought. They're carpooling. Maybe Javier had finally convinced his wife to soften toward her. She peeked through the gap between the seats, catching a glimpse of Raquel's sleek black hair, the diamond studs glinting in her ears. Then Raquel spoke. Are you absolutely sure no one will suspect anything when it happens? The words landed like a fist to Lydia's sternum. She couldn't breathe. The Tupperware slipped from her lap, the cake thudding softly on the floor mat. Raquel said, You guys have been on every YouTube video that shows how to make a fall look like an accident. Are you absolutely sure no one will suspect anything when it happens? Javier said, Raquel, we've talked about this 1,000 times. The plan is perfect. Mom will have a very natural, very believable accident. No one is going to question it when a woman her age slips on the stairs in her old house. Lydia's world tilted. The air in the car turned to syrup. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, tasting blood where her teeth had bitten her lip. Raquel continued, And after the funeral, when everything calms down, we can sell that old house and move into the subdivision we've always wanted. With the $200,000 that property is worth, plus the savings she's put away, we can live like we've always dreamed. Lydia's mind fractured. That house, her house, wasn't old. It was the place where she'd rocked Javier to sleep during thunderstorms, where she'd patched the roof with duct tape and prayers after the hailstorm of '98, where she'd taught him to tie his shoes on the warped front porch. Every nail, every coat of paint, every squeaky floorboard was a testament to her love. Alvin and Patricia are on board, right? Javier asked. The names hit harder than the rest. Alvin, her brother, her only remaining family after their parents died. Patricia, his sharp-tongued wife. They were in on this too. Of course they are, Raquel said. Your uncle is desperate for the money ever since he lost his job. And Patricia won't stop reminding me that your mother has always been very stingy with them. She says it's time for the family to get what they deserve. The word was a blade. Lydia had sold her wedding jewelry, Robert's ring, the one he'd proposed with under the oak tree at Miller Park, to buy Javier's first computer. She'd cleaned toilets until her hands cracked and bled so he could have braces. She'd eaten ramen for weeks so he could go on the senior trip to Washington, D.C. The life insurance is going to help too, Javier added. That's another $100,000 we'll get with no problems." Lydia's tears came silently, hot tracks down her cheeks. She tasted salt and betrayal. The boy who'd once cried when she burned the toast because he thought it meant she was sad, this man was a stranger. They talked for another 10 minutes. Details. The exact stair, the third from the top, loose since '05. The time, late evening, when Lydia would be tired from cleaning. The performance. Javier would discover her, call 911, sob convincingly. Raquel even suggested loosening the railing screws just a little for realism. When they finally exited the car, Lydia waited, counted to 600. Her legs had gone numb, pins and needles shooting through her calves. She emerged like a ghost, the cake a ruined mess on the floor mat. She left it there. Let them find it. Let them wonder. She drove home on autopilot, the city lights blurring into watercolor streaks. Her hands shook so badly she nearly ran a red light. The radio played an old country song, something about a mother's love being unbreakable. She turned it off with a violent twist. The house greeted her like a mausoleum. She locked the door, then checked it twice, 3 times. She poured herself a glass of water but couldn't drink it. Her reflection in the kitchen window looked like a stranger, hollow-eyed, gray hair escaping her bun in wild wisps. She sat at the table where she'd helped Javier with algebra, where she'd sewn his Halloween costumes, where she'd cried over Robert's hospital bills. The betrayal settled into her bones like winter. Sleep was impossible. She paced, she cried, she raged silently, fists clenched so tight her nails drew blood from her palms. At 3:17 a.m., she made a decision. If they wanted war, she would give them one. The next morning, Lydia called in sick to her cleaning jobs, first time in 23 years. She drove to the hardware store and bought a voice-activated recorder, the kind detectives used in movies. She tucked it into her purse like a grenade. She started with Alvin. She arrived at his house unannounced at 7:42 a.m., before he left for whatever lie he told Patricia he was doing. He opened the door in a rumpled bathrobe, his face puffy from sleep or drink. "Lydia?" His eyes darted past her, checking for witnesses. "What are—" "We need to talk." She pushed past him into the living room. The air smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Raquel appeared in the hallway, arms crossed. "What's this about?" Lydia didn't sit. "I know about the plan." Alvin's face drained of color. Patricia's eyes narrowed to slits. "What plan?" Alvin croaked. "Don't." Lydia's voice was steel. "The stairs, the insurance, the house, all of it." Silence stretched, like a wire about to snap. "You've been listening at keyholes," Patricia sneered. "Typical. Always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." "I was in the car," Lydia said. "Hidden. I heard everything." Alvin sank onto the couch like his legs had given out. Patricia's face twisted into something ugly. "You ungrateful old hag," she spat. "After everything you've what? Everything you've stolen? The money I earned scrubbing your toilets, Patricia? The money I saved while you bought designer purses?" Alvin found his voice. "You don't understand. We're drowning. The mortgage. You could have asked. I would have helped. But you chose murder." Patricia laughed, a brittle sound. "Help? Like the 10,000 you offered? We know what you're worth, Lydia. 200 for the house, 50 in savings, 100 in insurance. You've been hoarding while we starved." "I earned every cent," Lydia whispered. "For Javier." "Javier deserves it," Alvin said. "He's the only one who made something of himself. You owe him." The words were a physical blow. Lydia stepped back, her hand on the doorframe for support. "I owe him?" Her voice cracked. "I gave him my life." She left before they could see her cry. Over the next week, Lydia became a shadow. She followed Javier and Raquel in her ancient Corolla, parking 2 blocks away, watching through binoculars she'd bought at a pawn shop. She saw the designer bags, the $300 dinners, the way Raquel's laughter never reached her eyes. She recorded phone calls, installed a nanny cam in her own living room disguised as a clock. She documented everything. One night, she caught them in her house. She'd left early for a fake doctor's appointment, then circled back. Through the window, she watched Javier rifling through her desk drawers, Raquel photographing her bank statements with her phone. $52,412, Raquel read off the screen, plus the house. We're set. Javier hesitated. For a moment, Lydia thought she saw the boy she'd raised. Then he nodded. Let's get the screws loosened this weekend. She's been complaining about that step for months. It'll be believable. Lydia's hand went to the recorder in her pocket. She had enough. She went to the police. Detective Ramirez was kind but skeptical. Ma'am, family disputes over inheritance are common, but murder for hire? We need more than overheard conversations. I have recordings, Lydia said. She played them on her phone, Javier's voice clear as day, discussing the exact angle her neck would break. Ramirez's face hardened. We'll need to set up a sting. The plan was simple. Lydia would confront Javier and Raquel at her house. The police would listen from a van outside. She'd get them to admit everything on tape. She baked another cake, chocolate, Javier's favorite. Her hands didn't shake this time. They arrived at 7 p.m. sharp. Javier hugged her too tightly. Raquel's smile was a razor. Mom, you look tired, Javier said. Maybe you should think about moving, somewhere with no stairs. Lydia's heart pounded, but her voice was steady. I like my stairs. They remind me of you learning to walk. Raquel's eyes flicked to the 3rd step. Lydia saw the calculation. They ate cake in the living room. Lydia steered the conversation to money, how tight things were, how she might need to dip into savings for repairs. Javier leaned forward. Mom, you should update your will. Make sure everything goes to me. You know, in case I fall, Lydia asked softly. Raquel choked on her cake. Javier recovered quickly. Accidents happen. Old houses. Like the 3rd step? The one you were going to loosen? The room went still. What are you talking about? Javier's voice was too high. I heard you. In the car. With Raquel and Alvin and Patricia. Planning my murder. Raquel stood. This is insane. We're leaving. Sit down, Lydia said. The steel was back. The police are outside. They've heard everything. Javier's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked 8 years old again, the day Robert died. Mom, we were desperate. The debts. You were going to kill me, Lydia said. For money I earned for you? The front door burst open. Detectives swarmed in. Javier didn't resist. Raquel screamed obscenities as they cuffed her. Alvin and Patricia were arrested the next day. The trial was a circus. The recordings were airtight. Javier took a plea, 15 years. Raquel got 20. Alvin and Patricia, 12 each. Lydia sold the house, not to them, to a young couple with a baby on the way. She kept Robert's ring, had it reset into a necklace. She moved into a small apartment downtown, near the law library where Javier used to study. She started volunteering at a women's shelter, teaching financial literacy. She told her story, carefully edited, but the heart of it true. The sacrifices, the betrayal, the survival. Sometimes, late at night, she'd take out the ruined Tupperware from that day in the car. The cake had long since been cleaned out, but the stain remained, a reminder. She never visited Javier in prison. He wrote letters. She read them, then burned them in the sink. One spring morning, a year after the trial, she got a call from the shelter. A teenage boy needed help with college applications. His mother cleaned houses, just like she had. Lydia smiled. "Tell him to come by tomorrow. I'll bring cake." She hung up and started measuring Coco. The stairs in her new apartment were solid. No loose screws, no ghosts. Just a woman who'd learned that love could build a life and betrayal could burn it down, but she'd risen from the ashes, stronger than before.